Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jerry Williams, and I am the founder and president of Myositis Support and Understanding, and I'm also a patient living with myositis. I just want to point that out because I think it's important to understand that, as patients, we can take action and we can do things, not only as patients, but also as caregivers and family members, and that's why we're talking today. We're bringing the Landman family, Jenna and Lauren, with us today to kind of share what their experiences are and how they're taking action, in order to serve MSU's mission, which is improving the lives of myositis patients and caregivers. So I just want to first, we're kicking off Myositis Empower Walk Spirit Week, thanks to the Landmans. And we just thought it would be beneficial for you to meet the Landmans, to see their passion and their love and the selfless giving. Remember, the Empower Walk is this weekend, so it's this coming Saturday in person with precautions and virtually. So anyone can participate, attend, but we'll get to that a little bit later, as long as some things that you can do starting today to make a difference. Before we introduce our guests of honor, I would like to acknowledge that also joining me today are Lynn Wilson, who is the Vice President of Myositis Support and Understanding, and Lisa Snyderman, who is, she goes by her artist name, 80, and she just released The Grieving Project. So be sure to check that out. And maybe Lisa would be willing to put a link to her project in the comments. We'd appreciate that. Now, Lynn actually had the opportunity to attend last year's inaugural Myositis Empower Walk in Henderson, Nevada, and was able to meet the Landmans in person. I'm a little bit envious of that, but needless to say, I will let Lynn do the honors of welcoming you both, and we'll get started.
Thank you, Jerry. I really appreciate it. Yes, as Jerry said, I was very fortunate to be able to attend the first Empower Walk last year in a lovely little park in Henderson, Nevada, and I didn't even know it was that close to Las Vegas, so I got to go down to the Strip too. But that was one of the most inspiring events that I've ever been to. Not only did I have the opportunity to meet and hug and love up on Lauren and Jenna and Chad and Gladys, but I also had the opportunity to meet so many of their friends and family who were so appreciative that we were there to share our mission and to give them some insight into this insidious disease. I also have dermatomyositis, just as their father did. And so there were a lot of questions to answer. And the other thing that made it so wonderful is that we had put together a pretty large media campaign on our support groups. And we had a couple of people who actually came from Reno or somewhere, I can't remember now, drove all the way down to meet me at this event. And it just blew all of us away. And one lady who was new to a diagnosis, who was struggling, and the ability to just give her a hug meant so much to all of us. And I will never forget that event for that. And I wish I had more pictures of it. But be that as it may, we're here to hear the Landman story. And it's one that so many of us have experienced and others have experienced. And it's the journey through multiple phases of diagnosis to treatment to no treatment to, and then in this instance, an inevitable ending because Bob was unable to battle against this disease. But out of all this has come a passion and a fire within the Landmans to tell Bob's story and let others hear it, and let us share what we need to do to empower each other to move forward. So I'm not going to say anything else about that because the words that you're about to hear will have you up and ready to do battle. I would like to say that you know, the we're just so excited about this walk this year because I think we've made this a centerpiece of our awareness month. And I know that this is going to be a fabulous and very, very strong, successful event. And we'll tell you a little bit more later about what we're going to do this year, but I'll just mention right now that that it's this Saturday, so be ready. Get your shirts on. I'm taking a walk myself with my dog, my 17-year-old dog. My dog, and I'm a little older than that, my 17-year-old dog and my husband, and we are not technology challenged really, but somehow I'm going to figure out how I can go live with this. So without further ado, I'd just like to have Jenna and Lauren just briefly tell us a little bit about yourself, and as we get into the questions, I think you'll get a little bit more sense of this wonderful family. So, Jenna?
Hi, well, first off, thank you so much for having us. We're so honored to be here with you today. So I'm Jenna Landman. I'm the youngest of the Landmans. I'm in Boise, Idaho. I work in marketing and event planning. That's a little about me. Lauren?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for showing up for us today. We want to say hi to our mom. She just said hey, so hi, Mom. Thanks for watching. But I'm in Reno, Nevada, so about 8 hours from Las Vegas. And I work in fundraising for a local nonprofit in town. It's a local science center, so I just love helping nonprofits. It's my passion. And I just feel very honored that we're able to help MSU like we are right now.
Thank you both so much. And yes, hi Gladys. It's so great that you're watching. That's Gladys is their mom, like she said, and she said hello on Facebook. So we definitely want to call out Gladys and say hi. And obviously your daughters love you more than I do, but I love you already like you're my own mother. She's like the all-American mother. I mean, I've only had just very few interactions with her so far, but every time I've just walked away feeling so loved and cared for in such different ways. So thank you, Gladys.
She has that effect on people. Everybody loves her. She's the best mom in the world. So shout out.
Yes. Yeah. You got to give props when they're due, right?
Yes.
All right. So you created the Myositis Empower Walk in loving memory of your dad, Robert Bob. He went by Bob Landman. So tell us a little bit of what was your dad like?
Yeah, so our dad was a very smart and hardworking man, which made him a great pharmacist, and he loved that. He was, a little more reserved. He was a little bit quieter, but he loved to garden, so you could find him most of the time outdoors, tending to his yard, and all of our neighbors were always so jealous because we had such a great yard because our dad upkept it so well. He was also a foodie, so he loved snacking on junk foods. So one of his favorites, an all-time favorite, was In-N-Out burgers. So that's actually how we like to celebrate his life is, we like to get a burger and fries in honor of him. And we were thinking of how we can relate him to maybe a famous person or a character to kind of give you a glimpse into who he was. And, we were talking to our mom and she was saying, oh, well, he's kind of like Tim Allen from Home Improvement because he was that handyman. He always was able to fix things around the house and was always able to help the neighbors and friends with that as well. And then also we've said this all our lives, at least for looks wise, we've always said that he looks like Alex Trebek from Jeopardy, the host from Jeopardy, which is just something a little funny. We've always said that. So hopefully that paints a little bit of a clear picture of who our dad was.
Yes, it does. It's nice to, be able to relate a little bit to somebody that we might all, have a little bit of familiarity with. Mm-hmm. So, what was your dad and what was your relationship like with your mom and your dad? And it seems like she's more like maybe the outgoing and louder one.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say that. I think our mom was more outspoken and just definitely like the life of the party. Everybody knew her. And my dad was a little bit more reserved, but he was really respected and reliable in that way. So they just kind of balanced each other out. And we're definitely a good pair with that. So they worked well as a team, and we're lucky that we had both of them to look up to.
Yeah, well, they obviously did a wonderful job in raising the family. So thank you. Thank you. Now, when your dad got sick, started to get sick, kind of share with us what, did your dad or your mom or your family share his illness with you in any particular way, or?
It wasn't really much of a sit down, if you will. It just kind of happened so quickly that he started getting really sick and got progressively worse in that summer before he passed. And at that time, my sister and my brother were away at school. My brother would come home on occasion to care for him, but for the most part, they weren't living in Vegas. I was currently in Vegas, but I was living out on my own, so I wasn't at home as frequently. So my mom was the primary caregiver. So with us all kind of all over the place and my parents just trying to get answers and figure out what was going on, we didn't necessarily have that sit down because we weren't really sure what was happening. I think we all kind of had an idea that every time we would see him, he did look different. It was getting worse every time I'd visit him, like within weeks. But I think we all kind of thought, okay, this is something he's going to live with, thinking that we'd have him around for a little bit longer. It was just going to be a bit different. My mom was already planning on getting a minivan to have a wheelchair accessible, like all of that. So I think it was more sitting down and realizing that he was going to die. That was the hardest part, just because we weren't really expecting that. We thought he would be around a little longer. And so it was that kind of a process and healing that we kind of had to deal with.
All three of us, Jerry and myself, Lisa and myself, we all have dermatomyositis. And it runs a gamut of symptoms. What were his symptoms?
So we were speaking with our mom, and actually the symptoms and the flare-ups actually began in 2005 up until his passing, but they just didn't know what they were, and that it could have been dermatomyositis. So early on, he would get these sores on top of his head that would come and go. They'd be around for a couple of months, and they'd be extremely painful, so much that he couldn't brush his hair. And then they'd be gone for 6 months. And so they would just come and go. So they went to the dermatologist for that. And he was just told it was too much sun exposure, which, he was always outside, and he was a roofer when he was younger, and he lived in Southern California. So sun was not foreign to him. So that seemed plausible. But then he also would get really hot in his face and get this somewhat of a rash on his face, and his ears would burn up really frequently with no known triggers. It would just kind of, as you will, flare up. And the doctor would say it's attributed to stress, which, yes, my dad had a stressful job, but this seemed a bit different, and the frequencies were weird. And then growing up, my siblings and I can kind of all agree on this. One thing that stands out to us was when we would be eating dinner as a family, it would happen, not every time, but often enough for us to remember. My dad would be eating, and then midway between his meal, he would go like this to get it down his throat, and he would be seem like he was choking, and he would have to, be taken back, and then he would drink some milk because that was his favorite, and then he would continue eating. We didn't realize that was probably early signs of dysphagia. So as kids, we thought it was normal when we saw that. But my parents were, going through trying to find answers. They went to the doctor for that. It was told, oh, maybe you have GERD, stomach issues. He did have a bit of a heart condition, so maybe it was something attributed to that. But, just that in general was hard to see. And that's something that actually got worse significantly as he got more and more sick. But other symptoms that he had that progressed over time were he had inflamed cuticles that were very painful to touch, muscle weakness. He had really bad pain in his shoulder for his muscles that he wasn't able to drive, turn the steering wheel. He had a lot of weight loss that was very obvious. And he had puffiness and fluid underneath his eyes. And then amongst other things, there was plenty more, but a huge one that stood out to us that we all experienced differently was his dysphagia, and just having him deal with that and watching that was really, really hard. So those are just a few touch points of what he went through.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that some of this is difficult. I want to just point that out that, I lost my mother around the same time your father passed away, but I lost my mother to lung cancer. So I understand. So if, some of the questions, if some come up that are a little too sensitive right now, we understand. Okay. So just know that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. The symptoms that you mentioned, that unfortunately, these symptoms, they can be classic of so many different autoimmune diseases, right? So I know, like, when I was trying to get a diagnosis, it took me 3.5 years, and I was told it was all in my head. I was told stress. I was told all of those things that your dad was told. And it's so frustrating, especially when you're sick. So do you remember any of, I know that you had mentioned that he had been, kind of misdiagnosed, thrown between different doctors here and there. Do you guys remember any of specific misdiagnoses that he was treated, or put with?
Yeah.
Couldn't get the words out.
Yeah. So, like you said, a lot of doctors didn't really know what was going on, and they kind of, took his symptoms and said, oh, that's, not really a big deal. So they thought it could be a multitude of things. They had thought maybe lupus. They thought Guillain-Barré syndrome, or maybe a tumor in his throat due to his difficulty swallowing and kind of choking on food, or even issues with his stomach. So, towards the end, they had kind of decided that it was an autoimmune disease, but they were unable to really pinpoint it. And his blood work, too, was showing elevated markers, which, could mean cancer. And, my dad had always begged for some sort of muscle biopsy, but was never able to get one. The doctors it was a lot of lack of awareness, so they didn't really know what the diagnosis could be. So, yeah, there was a lot of different things thrown around that it could have been, because he had a lot of symptoms.
And that's interesting that, he even specifically asked for a muscle biopsy, even to the point of, you saying he practically begged for it. And
Yeah.
I remember being in that same position, and it's scary, and it's sad that was never taken more seriously.
So, Jennifer, one of the things that I know that I experienced from the start, and I was fortunate to, I think, living here in Houston, Texas. I was actually diagnosed in May of 2015, which I think was a little bit before your father was diagnosed. And I was diagnosed fairly quickly, within 3 months or so, and went to a rheumatologist who actually had clinical research experience, which helped. But when I went into the office, and he tells me that I'm 1 in a million, that I have this rare disease. The first thing that I wanted to do was get find support. Talk to people who either were experiencing what I was experiencing, or because I have a background as a petroleum engineer, I'll take it from the scientific point of view. I want to know what the definition is and this and that. Were you able to find any support for the family, and in terms of that, just finding out a little bit more about what the disease was like?
So as far as support goes, from what I can remember, and I could be getting this a little mixed up, my mom had a friend of a friend who was either in remission of DM or was a caregiver for somebody that had DM. And they found out about my dad. And so that person actually called my mom to speak with her. I was actually at my parents' house that night, and I can vividly see my mom speaking with her, just like, oh, thank God you're giving me information. And it was just as, let me share with you what I've experienced. Let me share with you what I went through. Let me recommend where you should go. All these things, just, simple things like that, where we were thrown all over the place of what we should do. And just by having that gave my parents a bit of hope. It definitely gave my dad a sense of hope, because during this whole time, he felt extremely alone. He felt that he was the only one that had this illness. He had nobody to talk to. My mom is a caregiver, she was dealing with, she was doing the best she could, but she was also dealing with an illness that she didn't completely understand. None of us understood. So that one person did help us. As far as other resources go, I think we were just desperately just trying to get with doctors to direct us to where to go. And unfortunately, with, months waiting on figuring this out, it ended up being detrimental and just being too much time wasted. But that's why MSU is so important to us, because you provide that for so many people. You provide that community so people can and feel supported and know that they're not alone. Because while my dad went through that, and as a family we did, I can't even imagine going through something like that personally and not having somebody to talk to that can understand. And so we're just extremely grateful, and we hope that what we're doing will help everyone, and just promoting that. And we're just really happy to be a part of this.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, Jerry, before you go on the next question, that's what I found when I went to the Empower Walk last year, was just being able to sit and tell my story and give somebody else, like I say, a hug, but listen to what they're going through too. And I saw a lot of relief on people's face. Oh, now I've connected. Now I know where somebody is who can help me out, or listen to me, and that I'm not alone. So
yeah.
It is important to have that support. And I'm sorry that your dad felt so alone, because it can be such a lonely disease. Now, you had, in some of our other talks, more privately, not broadcast all over Facebook, you had talked to us about the lack of urgency as a barrier to your dad getting a proper diagnosis. And were there some other barriers that you faced? I know that you mentioned this huge time delay, right? From lack of rheumatologists in the area to trying to get to a specialist. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Or I think you said it took about 4 months or so.
Yeah. So, there were plenty of barriers that my parents had faced when they were trying to find answers for what was going on. So, a huge one we think is a lack of awareness. The doctors had never heard of anything like myositis before, so it wasn't an option to even diagnose him because it wasn't coming to mind. And like you mentioned, there was a lack of rheumatologists in Las Vegas where my parents were trying to get the treatment. So, they were kind of just guessing what was going on, and there was no prior knowledge on myositis. So, we talked to my mom too, and she also felt that there was a huge lack of urgency to his symptoms and a lack of empathy, because, his symptoms were often just brushed off by the doctors as not being serious enough, or, they weren't a huge deal, or, because they would kind of flare up and it wasn't constant, it was kind of brushed off. So really the only doctor that advocated for our dad and really confirmed he had DM was our primary care doctor. And interestingly enough, our dad actually was the one to determine that he had DM, because, we mentioned he was a pharmacist, so he was treating a patient that had DM, and not knowing what DM was, he did, some additional research and then to help his patient, and he found out, oh, these symptoms are exactly what I'm going through. So he then talked, to the primary care doctor, and that's when she confirmed that he had DM. And so, once they had confirmed that, my parents tried to go to UCLA to get some extra treatment, but they wouldn't see him because they needed, a specialist confirmation with the diagnosis. So because he didn't have that, and it took, so long to get into a specialist, it took about 4 months or so. By that time, my dad was, too far gone for the treatments to be effective. So, with this whole process and what our family went through, the lack of empathy and unwillingness to believe their patients' symptoms were real and part of a bigger issue was probably the biggest barrier that we faced in getting a diagnosis.
And that is, it's amazing how much of your story and your dad's journey rings so true for those of us that, are still living with this disease. And it just blows me away, that that it had to be this way for your dad and for your family.
A question, I don't know, it's a delicate question, but I think that we need to ask it. And I don't even know if I can ask it without crying, but I will. Can you tell me a little bit about the complications that your dad experienced with DM?
Yeah, so our dad ultimately passed away from complications in the infection that was in his lungs, with which led to a respiratory failure. So he was never in the hospital, as our mom was, his prime caregiver for months at our home. And, near the end, hospice nurses would care for him at our house until he passed away. But he was really only in care for about 8 days. But we are very grateful for those hospice nurses, because they did have that empathy for him, and they, treated him with dignity and respected him and made sure he felt comfortable towards the end. So, their compassion and empathy is really what made the experience a little bit easier for us to all comprehend, because it was obviously a difficult time when he did pass.
And I'll just say that my mother passed away in 2000 from sepsis from an operation, and she was in hospice in the hospital, and the people in the hospice were just so wonderful, and it was a very, very compassionate group of ladies who tended to her, and I was very, very grateful and blessed that I had them there for me to help me through that journey too.
Definitely.
I'm glad that you've all had wonderful experience with hospice. I've had the same with my mom. They were just amazing. So I'm glad that you found the empathy and the dignity that your dad and your family deserved, especially during that tough time. So, I'm sure after, losing your dad to this rare disease, seeing and noticing all these things that probably could have been done differently, how did you kind of work through the sadness or the anger that your family or you individually might have had?
I think we probably all did that in our own way. Grieving is a very unique process, and it's something that, we can all, if you've experienced it, it's just different for everyone. But I would say that there was some anger towards the medical community of just the neglect and the, not feeling responsible for somebody's symptoms and putting them aside. We definitely had some anger, and it was just, frustrating. And we also felt like we were robbed of our dad. He retired, I believe, in that March, and he was gone that September. So he was only 62 years old, and we just felt like that's not fair, and there was just so much of his life to live, and he just had so much more. So there was a lot of anger for that. But over time with healing, we realized that this anger, this frustration we're feeling can be turned into something really positive. And, when we found MSU, it felt like an awakening. It felt like we had a way to process everything, to connect with people, to heal. And with that, we were able to turn that negativity, that anger we had, into positivity and to empower others. So we took that into a passion, and we felt that we had a job to do, and that was to advocate for others that sometimes cannot advocate for themselves. So while it did take time, and it does take years, you finally figure it out. And when you do, it's always good on the other side. And so we really needed MSU. And as much as it's been helpful to everyone, it's been helpful for us in the grieving process. So it's definitely been a beneficial step in that.
That's great. What a testimony to turning that anger into something useful and productive that is meaningful to you and to your family. That's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. So, going based on that, I guess, I guess that's part of your inspiration to help other patients, caregivers, and families going through this was your dad's experience. What ultimately led you to MSU?
I think it was really just wanting to find answers and ultimately wanting closure for what had happened, and to heal. So it was just something that guided us there, and it was somewhere that we needed to be as a family, just to see that community. And so it was just really at finding those answers and learning more about the illness itself. I think that it happened so quickly, and that my siblings and I, we were not all under the same roof with our family, that we kind of had to learn about everything on our own, and finding that resource to learn about dermatomyositis and the other illnesses, and that other people are going through it, and it can happen when you're young, and there's different stages and what it does to the body. That was really helpful for us, and it felt as if we needed that. And honestly, I don't know what we would have done without some sort of resource like that. And I think that having MSU around, my mom always says, and another shout out to her is, after a storm, there's always a rainbow. And although our dad's, death was the storm, MSU was our rainbow. And so we just hope to continue to shed light and to bring awareness and to make it, so big that doctors can't stop looking at it and they start figuring it out. So that was kind of what led us to MSU.
Wow. You're going to make me cry. So thank you for sharing that. Lynn?
Yeah, no, I just, take a moment to collect yourself, Jerry. I had to. So how did you find us? I don't, we would love to be able to have this big beacon in the light, in the world flashing saying, we're here for you. You're not alone. But I know you didn't find us that way. How did you find us?
I remember it was the second anniversary of my dad's death. I think it's all a blur, but I remember I was up in Reno at least, and I was standing right here in my kitchen, and I don't know what I was doing on my phone, if I was just, scrolling through Instagram or searching myositis just to learn more. I don't really know, but I just came across it, and I found your guys' Instagram. Then I went to the website, and I sort of freaked out. I told my family, I was like, did you know that this was here? Like, look at this, and shared it with them. And I think it might have been around Myositis Awareness Month, so it was even bigger then. So I was like, okay, this was something meant to be. So it honestly kind of just happened. And I remember where I was, but I can't tell you how I got there. But it was something that we needed to have. So you beacon of light, or in the sky, it was there. We found you.
Great. So the follow-up to that is, of course, then I know this is like a loaded question, but what made you decide to come and join our family?
We just wanted to continue that advocacy and really bring awareness. I think in the very beginning, when we saw this opportunity, and we were, okay, we can peer-to-peer fundraise, our family and I, with the generous friends and family that we had back home, we were able to raise $1,000 within the 2-week span. When we did that, we were like, okay, we could do a lot more. That was relatively easy. So that means we could bring more awareness, we could do more, we can make an impact. And it kind of just became this challenge, this goal that if we were to all do this together, it would honor our dad, but it would also help so many people that may not have that, that we can be that for them. So, to go off that, we were inspired to do it, and then we weren't going to stop until we figured something else to make it even bigger, which kind of led us to the Myositis Empower Walk, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
And that's actually, that's the next thing that I was actually going to ask was kind of how you came up with the idea of the Empower Walk, or and what your plans and goals for the Empower Walk were and now are. If you'd like to share that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so like Lauren mentioned, once we found MSU, we did, peer-to-peer fundraising just to start our support, posted on Facebook, texted friends, tried to get, some money. And once we realized we could raise, $1,000, we were like, wait, okay, we could do something more. So I vividly remember this day. Lauren and I were having one of our sister chats on the phone, and we were talking just how cool it was that we had started, some of that fundraising and did it in honor of our dad. And we both expressed interest in volunteering more, doing something more. We just didn't know what yet. And I had been, putting away some laundry as I was on the phone with her, and I was folding a shirt, and it was a charity walk shirt that I had attended in the past. And I was like, what if we do some sort of event? What if we do like a 5K, maybe a 5K run or walk? And then we were like, okay, I think we found what we're going to, push our efforts towards. So, Lauren works for a nonprofit, and I've, done a lot of nonprofit planning and events throughout college. So we thought, this is totally doable. We've got this. And so initially we had really planned it to be in Boise, where I'm located, just because we thought, I could get some of my college friends to go out there. We thought we could do, a big event at Boise State. We were really eager to do something big. So, we thought it was going to be this huge event with, a 5K, and we would do, like the run on the campus and end at the blue turf. So much so that I met with the athletics department at Boise State and, trying to get more information about pricing, availability, how can we make this happen? And at first it seemed, doable. We thought, okay, we're 6 months away. We could do it. That's plenty of time. And as it started getting closer, we started panicking, and we had another one of our sister chats and panicked on the phone. Like, what did we do? I think this is when we looped in you guys, Jerry and Lynn, and we told you a date and all that. And then we're like, oh my gosh, we committed to this, but we're really overwhelmed. How are we going to pull this off? So, we called our mom, again, another shout out, because she always calms us down. And she was, shed a little bit more reasoning to our situation. She said, why don't we just do it in Vegas? That's where Dad and I raised you guys. That's where we have family and friends. I can get my friends to join, and we can make it, low key kind of event. It doesn't have to be, this huge thing we were initially thinking. And we're like, okay, that's a good idea. Let's do that. And she was like, let's do it at the park that, she had some really gracious friends donate a tree in honor of our dad at the Discovery Park. And so, we thought, let's do it there. That will be, a great, significance to start the walk at. So, like we've mentioned before with our mom, she's just the most caring and friendly person out there. So we knew we would have lots of participation because she has so many friends. So we ended up having like 50 plus people there and fundraised $3,000+ on our first walk. And, Lynn got to join us, and it was just so humbling. We could not believe that we had done this when, just a few months ago we were stressed to plan this thing at Boise State, and we're like, what were we thinking? And it ended up just being a great event. So we wanted to just take this time to thank all of our family and friends that have supported us thus far and joined the walk. And showing right now is the tree that was donated, and we, on a lap of our walk, we put a blue ribbon in it just to kind of bring some significance to that.
I just happened to have that photo.
Oh, perfect.
I was like, I'm going to pull that photo up, because it really is a very special thing to do. And those events, I mean, Lauren, Jenna, both of you know, since you've not only been there, but you work, you've done these before, those 5K type events with the permits and the sponsors, and it's a lot, right?
It's a lot, and we were biting off way more than we could chew, but that's how eager we were to help. And we know that one day we will get to a 5K status. So just so you know, that will be coming soon at some point.
So the Empower Walk is a continual work in progress.
Yes.
Talking about this year's Empower Walk, obviously COVID-19 has interrupted, changed plans, and we've been talking about how this year people can attend virtually. Now, some people have asked, well, is this a virtual type event where people will be on on a website where they can do a virtual walk through a website or an app? I'm trying to explain, no, we want you to join us through our Facebook page, so forth and so on. So would you like to share a little bit about how things are going to go for Saturday?
Of course, yeah. So we have a great, walk plan for our second annual Myositis Empower Walk. For those participating virtually, you'll get to watch the walk unfold right on Facebook Live. So our dear friend will be hosting the live and recording the whole thing. So she'll provide, some fun prompts for you to answer while you're watching. She'll narrate, what's going on, and she'll take you on the walk with us. So, of course, our in-person attendees will be following social distancing guidelines and wearing masks. But, it's going to be a fun event. And we do ask, that weekend, just move how you're able. If you go on a stroll or walk or dance or anything that you can do, move your arms, whatever you can do to just, join in and support us. So that's kind of how you can expect to participate virtually. We also have a few other activities that we'll have at the walk. So we'll have our Post It with a Purpose. So basically recently our brother and his friend purchased a bench at the park that we're doing the walk at in honor of our dad. And Lauren wrote a beautiful poem displayed on it. So we kind of wanted to do something to highlight that. So we thought, we'll have rainbow sticky notes because, like Lauren said, MSU is our rainbow. So we'll have rainbow sticky notes, and we'll have our in-person attendees can write a sticky note, maybe an uplifting message, maybe why they support, really just anything uplifting that we could put on the bench. And they'll bring it with them on the first lap of the walk and stick it on the bench, and we'll have just a great photo op afterwards. But those participating virtually, MSU has posted on Facebook and Instagram the link to submit a sticky note or Post It with a Purpose message. So if you would like to have something on a sticky note, our family will be doing a sticky note party, and we'll be writing all of your messages that you would like on sticky notes, and we'll put that on the bench for you. We'll take a photo, and you'll be able to see it. And then when we go and we're Facebook Live, then, our dear friend will walk around and show everyone the bench. We'll also have another activity. So it's our poster board shout outs. You can use that same form to submit a shout out that you would like written on a poster board. So this will be fun because all of our in-person participants will be holding them up as they walk around the park. And so, passerbyers can see why you, fight for MSU. And I mean, it could be anything, MSU Strong, or We Walk for Sarah, or, Team Susan, whatever you would like on a poster board. Our family, like I said, on Friday, we're going to do a fun, sticky note and poster board party, and we're going to be creating those so you can be involved within the walk. So if you could just submit that by this Thursday, the 17th, so we can get those all ready and have them ready for the walk.
I think it's so amazing that this is going to be a little bit different as a virtual event, right? It's not going to be a typical, okay, just go out and walk, or just watch it on Facebook. People, can actually be a part of this. They can actually watch it and actively participate through comments on Facebook, through the poster board shout outs, through the Post It with a Purpose messages in advance. Make sure you get those in by the 17th so they can have their party and get those created. And I can't thank you enough for doing that, because that's going to take time, right? I mean, you're talking about these big poster boards and all these little messages. So that's just wonderful. Thank you so much. And I believe Lisa's going to share on Facebook the links for that information and where you can submit your positive, uplifting messages for those activities. And we really do encourage you to get involved. And some of the other things that you could think about doing between now and Saturday, the day of the walk, would be setting up like a team fundraiser. We've seen a lot of interesting teams being created, and personal fundraising pages. All of this information is on our Empower Walk webpage at understandingmyositis.org/empowerwalk.
Really like for you guys to be there virtually, and we will make it as inclusive as possible. And hopefully next year we can do even bigger in person, but we just want to thank you for supporting us this far and believing in what we do. And again, we're doing this for you. You are not alone, and we'll keep doing this until we find a cure.
Gosh, that's so awesome. Thank you.
I'd like to ask one question really quick.
Please.
if people would like to donate, where can they do that?
Well, there's a couple of options. Did you want me to answer that, Lauren, Jenna?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Sure. On the Empower Walk page, there is a link to donate specifically to the Empower Walk. All of the funds raised through the Empower Walk come directly to MSU, Myositis Support and Understanding, and we are an all-volunteer 501c3 nonprofit. So donations in the U.S. are tax deductible, just so that you know that. But there is a link to donate, and on that donate page, you can use credit card, you can use a bank account, you can text Empower Walk to 44321 to start a mobile donation. There are tons and tons of ways. The Roundup app is another thing that Lauren has pointed out to us, and it's not Empower Walk specific, but you can set this app up. Jenna or Lauren, did you want to talk about that real quick? Or
Yeah,
I don't want to put you on the spot, but
no, it's cool. I love this app. So basically, you just go to your Google Play or the App Store on iPhone, search Roundup app, and in 3 easy steps, you'll be giving back to a local nonprofit or a nonprofit you'd like to support. So you choose that nonprofit. So you search for MSU. You choose a credit card that you typically use or a debit card. And then you cap it out at a certain amount. So if you were to buy a coffee for $2.75, that 25 cents is put into a little bucket. At the end of the month, if you capped it out at $5, $10, that amount will be then given to that charity. So if you do $5 a month, that's $60 a year that you're giving back to an organization that could really use your support. It's really easy to set up. Jenna and I would be happy to help if you guys have any questions. But I have it set up right now for MSU, and I don't even think about it. It's a set it and forget it. You never have to use that card or activate it. It's already set up. It's when you make that purchase. But we highly encourage you to do that, to share with friends and family, because it's a really simple and easy way to give. And working at a nonprofit, those monthly gifts are really important to us. So we really would appreciate that support, and you would be helping MSU and the Empower Walk.
Thank you for that. You're right. It is. We don't talk about it enough. But yeah, I mean, without the monthly donations or even annual donations, if you're not able to give monthly, we wouldn't exist. We rely on that funding, and we can't thank you enough for it. Did anybody else have any questions, or did you want to leave us with any final thoughts, Jenna or Lauren?
Yeah, just again that we really do appreciate all the support we've been getting on the Empower Walk, and everyone that's followed our Instagram. If you want to follow that and get some updates, that's at Myositis Empower. Feel free to follow us on Instagram. We'll post updates about the walk and any details that you would need to know. But yeah, just again, we appreciate all the support that we've received and everyone just being so kind to our family.
Kind of going off what Jenna said, I just really want to thank everyone. We really couldn't do this without you, but we're doing this for you. So just know that, if you have any questions or want to learn more about the walk, if you have ideas of how to, change it up or something that you want to see, if you follow our Instagram and you message us, we will respond, and we will, be as inclusive as possible, because again, this is for you. We wish this was something we could have done for our dad, but because of that, like I said, we're turning this into a passion to help everyone. And we just want you to know from the bottom of our hearts, from my mom, my brother, sister, and I, you are not alone, and we will be here for you.
Thank you. And that means the world. Gosh, Jenna, thank you. Lauren, thank you. Gladys, Chad, if you're still out there watching, thank you. We send our love and virtual hugs to you both, and we look so forward to Saturday. And thank you for taking the time to share your experiences, and a lot. So I thank you for doing it.
Of course.
Anytime.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful rest of your night. And again, everybody that's watching, join us at understandingmyositis.org/Empower Walk, and you can get involved today. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.